Well, good morning and welcome to St. John's on the Lake. We're certainly glad to have you worshiping with us. We invite folks who have a smartphone to log into your favorite social media, Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and let folks know where you're spending your Sunday morning. By the way, we're beginning. Harold is starting. Harold is our digital expert, maestro, and we're going to be doing Facebook Live starting this morning. Is that right, Harold? What did he say?
Next week.
Next week. Well, okay, next week. So anyway, we're trying to expand how we can do our digital footprint. By the way, we have an offering basket that we have up here, and anytime during the worship, if you want to come and make an offering, you're welcome to do that. We're doing that during these summer months. But let me announce to you that if you're like me, I carry my wallet around with those cards in it. I have my phone. I don't carry cash, and I don't have a checkbook, and so hard for me to give. Well, we've just acquired a Square Register. It's on the table back there in the North X. It takes, you can use Apple Pay, or as Harold reminds you, you can do Android Pay. You can also use those chip reader cards. You know, just slide it in with a chip on there. Or you can use a regular credit card swipe, and you can share that and be a part of that. So if you want to come on Sunday morning and make your offering, you're welcome to do that. And God receives that money in all kinds of ways. You have a winning lottery ticket, you can put that in the offering basket. God loves money, however it helps us serve and pass the ministry on. So we're glad to share that and be a part of that. When you finish your digital devices, put them in a silent mode so it doesn't interrupt our time of worship together. We're certainly glad to share this time. I put my wallet away. I've already done my swipe. So I'm glad to have you here and be a part of this time of worship together. And so let's join in this call to worship as I invite Pastor Gay to join me in here. Rise, you find the words on the screen. But not on the screen back there, but we have it here. Christ is in our midst. How will you bid him welcome?
We will throw open the doors to our hearts. We will delight in his presence.
When God shows up, surprising things can happen.
We will make ourselves ready. We will lay down our burdens
and set aside our distractions.
Here we receive good news. Nothing is too wonderful for God.
So let us laugh and sing, rest and listen, dance and praise.
Our opening song is All Are Welcome. We're singing verses 1 through 4 to be on the screen.
It's also in your bulletin.
Oh, it's in your bulletin.
You may be seated. It is this time that we come together as a community, as a family of faith, to share all of the things that are really exciting us, that we're thrilled about, and the things that weigh us down. Concerns, worries, fears, trepidation, all of those things, because joy is doubled, they say, when you share it, and pain and burdens are halved when you share them. So we take this time to do that. I would like to take a point of privilege to make a few cares, joys, and concerns that we would like to lift up to you, you may or may not be aware of. The first is that we continue to pray for healing for Lori Davis, who had a hip replacement this week. But we also need to send our extra prayers for her, because 2 days after her surgery, she had a stroke in her eye and has lost the vision in her left eye. And right now they say it's permanent. So she really needs our uplifting. If you know Lori and you'd like to text her or send an email or send her a Facebook message, I know that she would deeply appreciate all of that. And she just really needs to feel our presence, even though she's stuck at home right now. Also, we have another, well, it's a bittersweet thing. Some, I'm sure, in Orlando will see it as a gift. Others will see it as a mourning and a loss. But as of next week will be Bernie and Carla's last Sunday with us as they move to Orlando to be with Bernie's sister, to be close to her as she's very, very ill. And you said 1992?
Yeah, they came right after.
They've been here since 1992 in this church. So our prayers of support and encouragement go out to you all. And but I know that you're going for a good reason and to do good things and to do God's work. And so we keep you both, hold you close in our hearts and our prayers. We also have incredible joy this week. If you've gotten Glenn's emails or you've seen our posts on Facebook, then you probably already know. But we came out of the, no, I'm sorry, I was just meaning we.
Okay.
Sorry. Came out of the General Conference worldwide meeting of United Methodists feeling very down, feeling very forgotten as progressives within the United Methodist Church. And we were very, very depressed. This last 2-week period has been a period where all of the, first, the annual conferences for us, that's Florida, but the annual conferences all over the country have been having their meetings. And this week, all of the jurisdictions, which is the next unit bigger than annual conference. We're part of the Southeastern jurisdiction, which is what, like 5 annual conferences?
No, it's 11.
11, I'm sorry. See, numbers surpass me, how I was ever a CPA.
The southeast of the United States.
Yeah, the whole southeastern United States, 11 conferences. All of those different jurisdictions throughout the United States have had their meetings and their votes and their delegates. And while we were somewhat feeling stifled and forgotten still after our annual conference, quite a few different annual conferences within the United States have voted as an entire conference to be disobedient to adopt a position that progressives consider to be biblical obedience, but it's a willful disobedience against the Book of Discipline. And that was very heartening. This week, we were Glenn was woohoo screaming in the house several times as he was watching the live feeds for all the various jurisdictions, that there have been now 3 or 4.
Well, primarily the jurisdictions is where United Methodists elect their bishops, which is the highest office in our denomination.
And
so 3 of the 5 denominations elected jurisdictions. Also made the decision to not follow the discipline with respect to issues of LGBT. Yeah. 2 chose not to.
Okay.
3 elected African American bishops, which was exciting.
Which was really exciting.
Actually, African American women.
Yes, and our friend and colleague. She's been a friend of Glenn's since like high school. Was elected bishop within the southeastern jurisdiction, and she is a progressive, Sue Hopper Johnson, and she's going to be going to the North Georgia annual conference to be their bishop there. But most importantly, the Western jurisdiction consecrated an openly LGBT bishop in the Western jurisdiction. She is the pastor of the Glide Memorial Church in San Francisco, and she's going to be the bishop in the Denver area. This is huge. This is huge.
First
And
time
we
ever in
are-
the United Methodist Church.
Yeah, we are very, very excited and lifted up again from our doldrums after General Conference that maybe there will be changes. So as much as we were afraid we would be kicked out of the denomination, they're not going to kick out whole jurisdictions. And so to us that signals that there will be an answer for us. So sadness and concern, but also joy in this day. Do any of you have any cares, hallelujahs, hurts that you'd like to share?
A hurt just came in off of the internet that there's been a police shooting in Baton Rouge this morning. Don't know all the information, but Harold had that. So add that to our hurts.
One more. Bernie? We just got word that there was another police shooting in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Shooting
So-
of police officers.
Shooting of police officers. Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, Bernie?
First, on a personal level, I guess, for changes in attitudes and guidance going forward. Secondary, somewhere conferences have been related to shooting to the police and fighting. That's something that has to come to a level like somewhere.
So prayers for guidance of changes in attitudes and latitudes, as Bernie said, and also prayers that all of this cycle of violence will calm itself and be reduced. Yeah, sorry. For all the families affected in Nice with the truck attack in Nice.
Then also, we need to also pray for Turkey, our real allies, and things going on there. Frankly, it happened this year. Did it succeed? It did happen.
Right. So prayers for Turkey also and their instability there with the coup attack.
Turkey, at the same time, the fact that the military coup did not succeed is not a victory for human rights in Turkey. Prime Minister, President Erdogan is not a good player. And we visited Turkey in the early 2000s, and I love that country, and I like the people and all that stuff, and it's just their situation is just very sad in a lot of ways.
Yes, it is definitely there needs to be prayers on all sides of that issue, and there were many people who were hoping that military coup would succeed. So our prayers to everyone who's affected by that situation. Anyone else? Yes. Prayers for our active duty service people and veterans who are out there in the midst of all of this violence in the world. So, anybody else? If not, if you will find your prayerful place, and as we share together our prayer song that's in your bulletin, merciful and just God. Be with us today as our hearts are heavy, as our souls carry this weight of violence in our world, in our culture, in our cities, and sometimes even in our homes. We ask that you will pour out your spirit of love and mercy on all of us, that our hearts can be open to be the companionship that you would have us to be for those in pain and those in mourning. And yet, God, we need even more spirit, because we need the strength and the imagination and the perseverance to remain advocates for peace, for finding that both and that we need in the world, to show others how to accept everyone, no matter where they are on their journey, or no matter who they are, or what they believe, or how they worship. God, we ask for your breath. As so many times in this last month we've had to hold our breath or had our breath taken away from us. Help us to breathe in your spirit so that we may truly be your instruments here in this place. And yet, God, we thank you for the blessings, small and large, that you have still provided for us, even in the midst of darkness. It seems so weird that we can have parts of our hearts that can be joyful while other parts are so sad and downtrodden. But it is your blessings, your love, your hope, and your peace that passes all understanding that helps us to continue in this world, to put one foot in front of the other, to do the things that we must do, to go the places we must go, as fearful as those places may be. And God, we ask all of this not just for us, but for all those who take breath now, who have ever taken breath, who ever will take breath on this earth. We love you, God, and it is in your name we pray together the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Creator, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
We look forward to hearing this music as we share together in our offering. Feel free to use the baskets as you leisure, as you're able to do that. We continue in our series of gospel readings from the Gospel of Luke, reading the 10th chapter, verses 38 through 42. You can follow along on the screen. You may have your own Bible with you, or you can have it on your smartphone. We'd love to have you follow along. Hear these, the words of God. While Jesus and his disciples were traveling, Jesus entered a village where a woman named Martha welcomed him as a guest. She had a sister named Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his message. By contrast, Martha was preoccupied with getting everything ready for their meal. So Martha came to Jesus and said, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to prepare the table all by myself? Tell her to help me." The Lord answered, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. One thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the better part. It won't be taken away from her." And our song responds to this word, "Deep and Still." Still remember the first time I heard this story of this conversation between Martha and Jesus. And I felt something within me say, yes. I've always been sort of a feminist, thanks to my mom and my big sister. And as I read about Jesus not only allowing, but tolerating, but affirming what Mary was doing, my heart jumped with joy. It didn't mean that women only had to be in the kitchen and sitting at the feet of Jesus. Listening might not seem radical for you and me today, but in Mary's day, it was a violation of both cultural and religious rules and practices. Men and women, they didn't talk and worship together in the same space. And I don't know what gave Mary the courage, the audacity to do this, but her example and Jesus' positive response, I suspect, has encouraged countless women to buck the system, to attend seminary, even to become ordained ministers, including my wife, Pastor Gay. Or for a woman to want to become a minister in our country, well, until very recently, that was not only unusual, but almost as radical as what Mary did when she dared to enter into that conversation with Jesus. Here in our United Methodist Church, women have only been ordained for the last 60 years. If I'd been there in Martha's home on that day, I think I would have cheered Jesus on. I would have been pumping my arm in the air. I would have been giving him a high five, not only for telling Martha to get off of Mary's back, but for settling the whole matter once and for all by declaring that Mary was right and Martha was wrong. That's how I once interpreted this passage. As I think back to that time in my life and my attitude, not only toward this scripture, but toward most everything, it strikes me how caught up I was in a rather dualistic way of thinking. Of thinking that I assumed that if one person was right, the other person was wrong. If one person was praised and affirmed, then the other person must be criticized. There was little room for a both and kind of thinking. For that kind of thinking, both and, it can cause us to approach situations where there might be some conflicting points of view with the assumption that the only way to resolve them was to be by having a winner and a loser. Kind of a black or white, right or wrong, win or lose thinking and attitude certainly makes life more challenging than it has to be. So it's interesting to come back now to this story about Mary and Martha and their interaction with Jesus, attempting to listen to this message with ears and a heart that didn't require a winner-loser, good guy, bad guy kind of approach. Recently listened to a story told by the Reverend Susie Smith. She's a UCC minister in South Carolina. I felt freed from my own earlier biases regarding good guys and bad guys, and beyond assumption that even has to be good guys and bad guys. I considered in particular Reverend Susie's different possibilities. Different possibilities about how our cultures, about how that culture's roles and responsibilities affected what happens to the story. Different possibilities as well regarding what you and I can learn from the story of Mary and Martha. Well, I've always identified and attempted to tell the story from what I imagined Mary's perspective might be. Now, as an older man who now realizes at least a bit more about how complex human beings we are and how extremely complicated family dynamics can be, maybe I choose to listen a bit closer to her attempt to hear and tell the story from Martha's perspective. And so this morning we want to share with you this Reverend Susie Smith's Martha monologue with all the awareness of the historical context regarding our gender roles and expectations, but with an awareness of the Gospel of Luke's overall intent and purpose in telling the story of Jesus. And maybe most importantly, with an awareness that a story does not have to have winners and losers, those who are right and those who are wrong. I think this story is a beautiful attempt to put the story in a context that at least tries to understand where Martha may have been coming from when she came into that room and asked Jesus point blank to help her sister come out and help her.
Well, it happened again today, just like it always seems to these days. I've been cooking and cleaning all week because we heard that Jesus might be coming to town. In the past, when Jesus came to town, the first place he stopped was our house. As would be expected, my brother Lazarus always invites him to stay for dinner. It's our duty and obligation to provide this kind of hospitality for anyone who comes to our home. And this is one of the religious practices and customs that I not only understand, but that fully support. Because if I were traveling, I would appreciate someone along the way offering me a meal. The troubling part, for me at least, these days is the fact that Lazarus does this before checking with me, checking to see if we have enough food to offer someone else. Things are tight for everyone now. With the new taxes that we have to pay, we're never sure if we'll have enough food to feed ourselves from week to week. And as the oldest member of our family, I've been feeling the weight of this responsibility ever since my parents died. Technically, our home belongs to Lazarus since he's the man of the family, but in reality, I'm the one that has to make sure that the taxes get paid so we can stay here and not get kicked out like so many of our neighbors have when they couldn't pay their taxes. Things have gotten so bad that if I don't stay on top of everything, from tending our garden to preserving what it produces, we won't have enough food to make it through the next dry season. Lazarus and Mary haven't faced this reality. The truth is, I haven't really told them everything because I don't want them to worry as much as I do. Worrying keeps me awake at night. Do you know what it feels like to have the weight of your entire family resting on your shoulders? And that's part of why I'm grateful that Jesus may be coming our way today. He's the one person in my life with whom I can talk about these things. He doesn't try to fix everything or even tell me what to do. He simply listens. Jesus is the most incredible man I've ever known. Now, please don't tell anyone else about this, but when he shares a meal with us, he insists on helping clear the dishes. And when no one else is noticing, he even comes out to help me wash the dishes. Can you imagine a man doing a woman's work like that? And when Jesus sneaks out to help me, he always asks me how I'm doing, especially since our parents died. There's something about him that causes me to open up and to tell him the truth, not only about what I'm thinking, but about what I'm feeling. When I heard Jesus was coming to town, I wanted to prepare a special meal. I've been so worried about him being out on the road all the time like he is now. He travels from place to place, trying to help people understand what God is really like. And the word is that people are beginning not only to listen to what he has to say, but to take it seriously. I have to admit, though, I'd be even more excited about Jesus being here today if it was just him I had to feed. But that never happens anymore. That ragtag bunch of fishermen and tax collectors and other riffraff he calls disciples are always with him now. They eat more than any group I've ever seen. And none of them have probably had a decent meal in weeks either. And while I want to feed all of them, I just worry about whether we'll have enough. To run out of food would be a disgrace, not only for me, but especially for Lazarus and for our family's name. And things are even more complicated these days by not knowing who else might stop by when the word gets out that Jesus is here. News spreads pretty quickly in our small town, and everyone, from local officials to leaders of the synagogue, come by, and of course, I have to feed them as well. What if some tax collector came by? If he saw me feeding this many people, he would assume we have more than we do and raise our taxes again. If it was just me I was worried about, I'd be fine taking that kind of risk, but I have to look out for my family. I like having Jesus here. It helps me feel like I'm participating in his ministry by providing a good, nourishing meal and a safe place to rest. And you may think it's silly for me to feel that way, since women obviously can't be disciples. But Jesus helps me believe that what I'm contributing is important. I think that's what Mary felt as well, especially the last time Jesus was here. She felt like she was a part of his ministry, so went in to hear what he was saying. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm excited that Mary is so interested in what Jesus has to say. But what Mary doesn't realize is the implications of what she's doing. She doesn't think about how this will affect not only her life, but our family's life. She certainly doesn't realize that what she's doing could jeopardize everything else that Jesus is trying to say and do. If I've told Mary once, I've told her 1,000 times that sitting in there with the men is going to ruin her reputation. No self-respecting man in our village is going to marry a woman who does things that women are not supposed to do. And no one will believe this, but it's not only Mary's reputation and future that I'm worried about, but that of Jesus as well. Do you realize what kind of rumors might start when people see her sitting there at his feet in a room where only men are supposed to be? People will think the worst, not only of Mary, but of Jesus. They already gossip about why he's not married. At his age, every good Jewish man is married. People these days not only say, but do awful things to each other. I've got to figure out a way to stop Mary from destroying her future as well as Jesus' future. Hey, maybe if I asked Jesus to tell her to come back out in the kitchen and help me, then he would do it. I don't know what else to try.
So that's Reverend Susie's version of our story, according to Martha. Attempting to hear the story from her perspective has helped me. I hope maybe it's helped you to remember that there's always maybe another side to the story. Now I wonder what Jesus would say if he got to tell the story from his perspective. But that's a sermon for another day. Let us pray. Oh God, who has been made known to us in Jesus, help us to remember that what we hear and see and experience depends on where we stand. As we seek to be and become a people who live in peace, who act with integrity, God, please enable us, empower us to stop and listen. To listen what things might be like standing in somebody else's shoes. To find ways to check our own privilege, to especially finding those shoes of those who might perpetuate violence, and we extend oppression in our world. Find us, God, a way to say or to reach out with your love, oh God. Amen. As we continue in our time of worship together, we're invited to take part in the sacrament of Holy Communion. In a few moments, we'll break the bread and have the cup, and you're welcome to receive the bread and the cup. All are welcome and invited to come. But first, we have some words to share together. Hear this invitation to communion. This has been a really violent time these last few weeks. The Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, the airport terror attack in Istanbul, the suicide bomber in Baghdad, the shootings in Bangladesh, the police shooting of Alton Sterling in Louisiana. the police shooting of Philandro Castile in Minnesota, the shooting deaths of 5 police officers in Dallas, the truck attack in Nice, France, the coup attempt in Turkey. And yet, in the midst of such horrible events, God still blesses us. Like when this United Methodist Church, one we feel often at odds with, experiences annual conference and even jurisdictions to fully claim their willingness to disobey the book of obedience, of discipline, to be obedient to the Bible. When a Western jurisdiction, delegates insist upon consecrating an openly LGBTQ bishop. These blessings give us hope for peace and abundant life in spite of what the world sends our way. Not the least of these blessings are the daily, the weekly, sacramental moments that we cherish yet often take for granted, like the blessings bestowed in Holy Communion, the precursor to the heavenly banquet to which everyone is invited. So today we recognize this God who blesses in these times of violence by sharing a poem written by our ministry colleague and friend, Jan Richardson.
Which is to say, this blessing is always. Which is to say, there is no place this blessing does not long to cry out, to weep its words in sorrow, to scream its lines in sacred rage. Which is to say, there is no day this blessing ceases to whisper into the ear of the dying, the despairing, the terrified. Which is to say, there is no moment this blessing refuses to sing itself into the heart of the hated and the hateful, the victim and the victimizer, with every last ounce of hope it has. Which is to say, there is none that can stop it, none that can halt its course, none that will still its cadence, none that will delay its rising, none that can keep it from springing forth from the mouths of us who hope, from the hands of us who act, from the hearts of us who love, from the feet of us who will not cease our stubborn, arching, marching, until this blessing has spoken its final word, until this blessing has breathed its benediction in every place, in every tongue.
Peace.
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 Peace. Peace.
Come, share in God's blessing, the one that bring hope, revive the injured, inspire peace. Come, receive God's holy food and drink. The bread, one loaf broken open for the entire people. The juice, one cup, shared equally for all who wish to drink. Come as you feel ready, this table is God's table, not ours, and is open to all who wish to celebrate the peace in our world. Come. Don't know if we have any announcements. We gave quite a bit during our prayer time and shared that. Didn't we have any other words to share? Our closing song is Praise Ye the Living God. The words are in our bulletin. It'll be on the screen. Let's rise and sing together. So hear these words of benediction, and then we join together in singing. Go forth with a God who loves us all, and who says all means all. Go with God. Amen.